Money's gotten really tight in terms of investment. I think you'll probably see a lot of projects that have to be constructed from scratch be put on hold.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics as we continue on our coverage of the gold and silver markets, which are heading into some challenging times. As folks are aware, we've seen quite a sell-off in the silver market, pulling up the price as we're recording on Monday, July 18th. Silver checking in today at $18.80, up a little bit on the day. Fortunately, I am joined by Greg Liller of Sierra Madre, a longtime silver mining expert, going back to the late 70s, and thought it'd be helpful to dig in and see how things are looking on the supply side, where not the easiest environment, but fortunately, if there's anyone out there who's set to tackle these issues and share his experience, that would be Greg. So Greg, it's a pleasure to have you back on in here. Always good to see you on the show. And how's everything going with you today?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's good to have you back here. And we talked a bit last time that you were here about some of the supply demand imbalance, looking at the latest World Silver Survey numbers showing a deficit, which doesn't seem in line to be getting any easier. But I was wondering if you could just share with people what you're seeing and experiencing and how things change, where we do have silver now at $18.80, close to $19. And what is the environment like out there, and how are things stacking up with what we're seeing going on?
Money's gotten really tight in terms of investment. I think you'll probably see a lot of projects that have to be constructed from scratch be put on hold. Some of those companies may not survive either, depending on how long this lasts. But yeah, it'll definitely have an impact on future production. And there's a lag time to that. The byproduct producers, they're still byproduct producers, so it won't really affect them. But the primary market, yeah, there's going to be a lack of exploration investment, and it's going to be difficult to finance new mines.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. How long does that go before we start running into an issue on the supply side? You mentioned obviously the byproduct miners a little bit less affected by that, although not the easiest environment. We're seeing some of the other byproduct commodity prices fall as well as the Fed continues to raise interest rates. So how much longer does this go before we really start to see an impact on the supply?
I think we were already in a deficit, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So that will, I would think, hasten the bottom that we're in, breaking out of it. You can only chew up out of your supply your investment supply so fast. A lot of people just aren't going to turn loose of their silver. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be on the beach someplace right now. So,
well, it is tricky to imagine how this plays out, although certainly you've been doing this for a while and you've seen some of the other bear markets for silver. Is there anything that you've witnessed before that's similar to this that could provide a bit of a template for how things go? I mean, we had the sell-off coming after 2011 and saw silver under $20 for a couple of years. Obviously, basically any expense or input cost has risen substantially at this point, despite the Fed's hikes. Inflation numbers still coming out pretty high, and Is there any other similar period that you could compare this to put it in perspective for people?
I think like 2011, 2013, and 14, um, consumption was a lot different then. I mean, it was you're just the demand, solar panel demand by itself. It was minuscule back then, and now it's jumped to what, 8-10% of the silver consumption, something like that.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't said I don't have a crystal ball, but I would think it's this could just be a minor fluctuation in that upward trend that started what, 8 years ago,
Yeah.
because it has bounced around. So,
Yeah, and I think it makes a difficult planning environment because we've seen silver get close to $30 a couple times in the past couple of years. Now, again, around that $19 mark. What are producers, explorers, how are they looking at that in terms of a planning perspective where we've seen so much volatility in the price that it seems like it would make it difficult. I mean, you don't know, even if silver goes back up to $24, $25, where's the cutoff for where investors and project managers are able to more confidently go back into the market and try and get some of these projects online?
generally, I mean, when we do our economics, when you do your technical reports, your 43101 technical reports, you use a 3-year moving average. And if it's kind of on running down, you basically kind of maybe shorten that up. But no, and producing mine, it makes it difficult because you got a short-term, medium-term, and long-term mine plan that you're operating under. And that short-term mine plan, it can affect that significantly. So yeah, it makes all of that, all the above, difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard to plan for it. It's the downside, the down environment is never as much fun as the up when things are moving up. I'll put it that way. So, but yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but it just seems to me that demand will take over on the price side sooner than later. And if you're already in a deficit, that should accelerate things.
You would think so, and we've seen also at the same time a lot of the metal from Russia seemingly get cut off from the supply, which is another big silver producer producing a lot of commodities. Have any of the folks that you're talking to, whether investors or just some of your peers in the silver industry, any thoughts on how that could affect the supply of the metals going forward?
Yeah. So Europe and the US don't buy it anymore, but the Chinese and the Indians stepped right in and picked up the slack. So I don't, the boycott of the Russian products is kind of a non-event, it appears to me, because there's plenty of other buyers for what they're selling.
So does that just leave us in a situation where some of these plans to go green, I look at some of the solar panel numbers coming out there. I mean, some of the projections call for significant growth in both of those. Are these things that at this current silver price just at some point don't happen, or is there any other scenario you see this playing out in?
Well, if they're going to increase production, that's going to increase consumption, which should drive the price up, right? I don't know. We talked a little bit about the JP Morgan spoofing lawsuit that's going on. You just have to wonder how much of that is still going on. It just seems odd every time you look at, as soon as Comac opens or New York opens up, bang, the price is down. Or for the last 2 days, bang, the price is up. So, you know, it's how much of this is due to people playing silly booger or what, I don't know, but you've always got that coming into play. And, you know, who knows, if it gets low enough, you might get that, was that one, that coalition, what was it called? Robin Hood, something or other, a year ago or so, where, I mean, they set off a very temporary short squeeze, but it was really easy to do. So, you know, how much of that will come into play again as price comes down, I don't know. But
Well, that does make a less than ideal environment, as we've talked about before, plenty on the show. You have the thing traded in paper, and often very little disconnect to what's happening in the physical market, where you're describing, rightly so, the conditions aren't so easy. And I guess we'll just continue to watch and see how that plays out. Seems like a bit of a disconnect, although I guess that is how some of these things go. Although, Greg, perhaps you could comment on how things are going for you guys with Sierra Madre and the projects that you're moving forward and how you're handling some of these challenges.
yeah, we're kind of in a unique position with our Guitarra acquisition, because it's an already built mine. Everything's all in place. First Majestic's done a great job on their care and maintenance. A little bit of patching work and you could throw the switch and get it started tomorrow. So it doesn't have this large capital investment necessary to construct it to begin with. It's got 3 underground mines, Guitarra, Colosso, and Nazareno. Basically, when they went on care and maintenance, they just stopped stoping. So in a lot of those areas, we can just pick up right where they left off on those stopes. So it's really unique. And then we've got our tailings reprocessing option. So it's just really a matter of completing the transaction. But I mean, it's a really unique position to be in, because we don't need that 150 million, $200 million, $500 million of construction in order to start production.
And so is that perhaps reasonable to expect that maybe projects where you don't have as big of a capital expenditure will still be able to keep going, but things like that where you do need something more intense is just going to be harder to get done right now?
I think so, yeah. Capital does get tight when prices come down. So yeah, a lot of these projects that were on the books to start construction or have a big upgrade for primary silver producers, they're just not going to happen. And you got this rising interest rate thing coming into play too. So that makes financing a capital construction even more expensive.
And at the same time, continue to hear from you, as well as a lot of the other mining industry folks that I talk with, saying that most of the bigger, easy deposits have been found, and it's not easy to go out and find a big silver deposit to go mine and bring silver out of the ground. Anything you could comment on there?
Oh no, it's getting harder every year. I mean, when I first got in the business, looking back on then, it was Nevada was the one that was red hot. And a lot of it was going back to the old districts. and taking a second look at them. Well, they've had their second look. A lot of them have had a third look. I haven't driven through Nevada lately, but it used to be drive through and every road outcrop would have just dozens, if not hundreds of aluminum sample tags on it. So yeah, it's been stuff that's sticking its ugly little head out of the ground. Most of that's been found and tested. You'll see some grassroots finds, but I think we're now on. You got to look for blind stuff now, which is very expensive. I mean, ore deposits are not volumetrically all that large to begin with. Primary silver ones, and even the copper porphyry's footprint is much smaller than an oil field's footprint. So it's just yeah, it's getting more and more difficult every year.
And have we reached the point where some of those old deposits that were, whether it's 100 years ago, 200 years ago, where miners found silver, now we have more technology, but we've basically gotten close to the point where we've maxed out the degree to having an increased technology in today's day and age can still pull things out? Have we pretty much maxed out what's possible from that?
Oh no, I mean, you'll constantly see technology improving efficiencies of extraction, but I mean, once you've taken those ounces out of the ground, they're gone, and there just becomes a point where it just no matter what your efficiencies are, it's not worth it. I mean, it costs money to mine it, costs money to crush it, to grind it. So there's a limit at which point you can drop your economic grades for recovery. I mean, it's just 10 grams isn't going to pay for mining and milling, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned the last time we talked as well that some of the actual equipment to mine, to do drilling, is getting harder to find just because of the supply chain issues and the various factors going on. Is that something you've continued to see?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's not anything that's not going to change for a while. Yeah, lead time's about 2 years for underground mining equipment, new equipment now. So until you see big factory expansions, which I haven't heard of any going on, it'll still be an issue. And a lot of that too is the electronics. And a lot of that comes out of China, or Taiwan's a big producer of chips and circuit boards. So that could develop into a very interesting situation too, depending on what the Chinese do. So yeah, I don't look at that supply chain being solved anytime soon.
Yeah, and certainly not any easier with the current tensions between the West and the East, where not seeming to play so well together. And it's unfortunate. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just chuckling at your not seeming to play so well together comment.
Yeah, and it just seems like some hard conditions being created by the governmental policies, whether just in the financial environment or for the companies that are trying to get resources out of the ground so we can continue to do things as a society. So appreciate that you're still sticking in there and going and doing what you can on behalf of Sierra Madre. And before we wrap up, perhaps any other comments on what you guys are doing from a project standpoint? I'll pull up your website here, and anything else you could share about some of the things that you guys are in the middle of right now?
Sure, we're drilling at both our Tepic and our La Tigra projects in Nayarit. So we're still sticking to plan on those. Qatar is not going to change anything. Our big push is to get a resource out on both projects. Hopefully by year end, and the drilling's going quite well, so it may stretch out just because I don't like to have to pay for a technical report while I'm still drilling and then have to do another one shortly thereafter when I stop drilling. So I like to get things blocked out first. And we're, like I said, drilling's going well at both projects. Our shares have been halted with the Guitar transaction until that's completed. So we do have drill results, but what's the point in releasing them at this point? So it's once we're up and trading again, we'll have a big news flow coming out on that. But no, I'm quite happy with the results. And we're still looking at other projects in Nayarit and taking a look at a couple of already built mills there that we can use to process material from both Tepic and La Tigra, our old hub and spoke type approach to production. So no, I'm very pleased.
Well, it's good to hear that you're moving things forward, doing what you can in a challenging environment. I know it's not easy for the investors or for the companies or for the people that are planning to use silver going forward, but fortunately, it's good to have some good people on that mission, of which you are one of them. And for folks that have questions about the projects you guys are doing, they can find out more information at Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. And also, I think you're going to stick around and record an update with a little more detail on some of the drilling results that you guys have been going through lately. And for folks who want to hear more about that, well, that is coming your way now.